All right, welcome in everybody. We're going to let this kind of run for a minute to get it kind of set up and people can kind of roll in here for the recap and preview show. Hope everybody's enjoying their Wednesday night. I know I am. I'm also going to share this to Twitter. So we're going to get started here in just a minute. All right, a couple people rolled in here at this point, so we'll get this started. So welcome in to the recap and preview show, recap of Week 6, and we'll preview into Week 7 as well. Should be a good week. I mean, last week we had a couple of games that went on here that a few ranked matchups, some teams I think are starting to separate themselves, and we're having our classes and our tiers in 8-man at the top especially really kind of showing itself, and we'll get to that in just a minute here. So thank everybody for tuning in for Missouri 8-Man Football Facebook Live, also on Straight Up Sports for the podcast. You're listening to us on your podcast feeds later on. Thanks everybody for tuning in. I will take questions towards the end. If you throw a question out there and I kind of think it's interesting, I might take it at the time as well for this. So just shoot them my way. I will answer pretty much any question you guys have for me so far. But first, we'll go to Week 6 and a few of my general thoughts here. We'll go to the ranked matchups here first. First one, North Andrew at Stanbury. Final score was 55-12, Stanbury, and they were in control the entire time. They were up 27-0 after the first quarter. Stanbury is an absolute machine. I saw the same thing they did versus Albany earlier this year, where they just came out and it was like bam, 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 just methodical. We're going to do what we're going to do, and you guys have to try to get us off that, and no one's been able to do that so far this year. King City was the closest, but Stanbury still got a win there. So Stanbury, I know Worth County looked good. We'll get to them in a minute, but until Stanbury gets taken off the hill, they're my number one team in the state until proven otherwise, and we'll see over the next 3 weeks if they can stay at that top spot. Up next, number 7 Oric and number 2 Worth County. Anthony and I were both kind of hoping this game would be pretty good. He went to this game, Anthony did, and unfortunately, Worth County just too much for Oric. Worth County looks really good at this point, wins over King City and Oric, 2 ranked teams over the past 2 weeks, and I know the King City game was a 10-point game. Worth County kind of controlled that game from start to finish, and then at Oric, they did control that start to finish. It was no contest the entire time. Worth County was the better team in that one. It really showed there. So Reinhardt, Gladstone, Rundy, McIntyre, Latham up front, they just look really good right now. So good luck beating Worth County at this point. They're a very good football team. They got to come a little this week. Next 2 weeks after that, North Andrew Stanbury will really kind of determine where they finish in the GRC and where they finish in District 4 in the standings. We'll get that in just a minute. The next one, the game that I was at on Friday, number 8 Archie at number 3 Drexel, and you just saw the talent gap in that one and the maturity gap a little bit there between Drexel and Archie. I was very impressed with Drexel. Jacob Coffey did what he does. He's going to run the ball really well. He's one of the better runners in the state. Quarterback, running back, doesn't matter. He's one of the better players. But even like Corey Compton, he was really good, not just with the ball in his hand, with the ball out of his hands. He threw a really good block on one of Coffey's touchdown runs that sprung him for like a 30-yard touchdown or something like that. So a very impressive showing from him. Guys like JoJo Mitchell got a touchdown on the defensive side, and they just looked like a complete unit kind of deal there. I think they're just as good as the top 3 teams in the North with Worth County, Stanbury, and East Atchison. The one thing with Drexel, and that's been kind of the thing the last couple of years, skill position-wise, they are just as good as anybody else in the state. I believe that to my core. But line play, will they be able to match up with Stanbury and Worth County EA when it comes to that point? The King City possibly the semifinals, except Clifton. How will they be able to match up front with those teams? I think they're going to be pretty solid, especially if they get Caleb Mayfield back. I'm not sure with his status going into the rest of the season, but he's a big piece of that. If he can play, they're formidable enough up front to get Coffey some running lanes. Even last year with Southwest Livingston, when they played them in the state semifinals, Coffey was having his way a little bit there on offense, but they just got beat down a little bit there up front. We'll see if they can withstand that this year against some teams up north who have really good line play. That's my one thing with Drexel kind of looking forward to after seeing them in person, after seeing Stanbury and Worth County in person. I'll see EA next week in person, hopefully, as well. So we'll see what happens there, but I'm really intrigued to see how that game kind of goes in 2 weeks with EA and Stanbury to kind of see how their lines match up front. Because as much as I love skill guys, and skill guys can have their way, especially in 8-man football, the line play is still important because the offensive guys and the skills can't quite get going completely if they're getting hit 2 yards in the backfield. That's one thing I want to see with Drexel moving forward, but this is their biggest challenge in the regular season. They got the win. They got Lutheran in week 9. We'll see what they do there as well, with a bigger line as well. So that would be a good gauge for Drexel going into the playoffs. There, EA took down Mound City. It was 20-0 at halftime. Final score was 58-6. EA, they're a machine on defense. They're not going to let you score points on them. So good. I mean, Mound City, good showing. I mean, EA is a tough opponent, so good win there for EA as well. They're going to cruise to the 275 conference title. North Shelby played Keatsville on Thursday night. North Shelby scored 54 points in the second quarter. They had 3 pick sixes in that first half. Very impressive there for North Shelby. Keatsville's not great, but still 90-22 win for North Shelby as they got ready for their week 7 matchup versus Stanbury. We'll get to in a little bit. King City, Rockport. King City 74-0. Got back on their winning ways a little bit. Just a different class of teams there. I know Rockport was ranked last couple of weeks. They weren't ranked this past week after losing to EA. I didn't think they were quite ready for that to be that ranked status. I think they're a solid team, but not quite where they should have been a ranked kind of deal at this point, just because they haven't beaten anybody at this point. And we have seen Rockport in the past win their first 3 or 4 games, run to EA, and then they kind of downslope the rest of the year. I want to see what they do responding this week with Southwest Livingston. They still have Mound City and South Holt. I think it's South Holt next week and then Mound City the week after, and see how they kind of balance out the rest of their schedule going forward for Rockport. St. Paul Lutheran, they got ranked for the first time, I think, all year last week. They got a win over Santa Fe, 54-0. Santa Fe, one of the better scoring offenses in the state, so holding them to a shutout, very impressive for the Saints there. They have a very good defense. They play a very structured style. I like what they're going to see. I'll see them this week. The Bishop of Blonde, they were ranked 10th last week. They fell in the rankings this week. Beat KC's Christian, but only 44-27. Not quite the game you want to see out of LeBlanc where they could probably pull away. I'm not sure what happened over there. I haven't really talked to people from LeBlanc at this point with that game. It was just kind of a point where it's like, it's not. It's a win. We'll take all the wins we can get, but it wasn't what we kind of expected them playing KC's Christian. Some of the other games, Albany got a big win over Schuyler. Northwest Hughesville beat Concordia to get back to 500. Nottoway Valley got a big win over DeKalb in that one, 58-6. Knox County beat St. Christian. Lockwood beat up on Liberal. Northern Hardin Central beat Northland Christian in a shootout. Jeremy Benson, you know what, Jeremy? I'm also going to watch the Cardinals. They're behind me, and I have the Cardinals here as well. Jeremy Benson, you can see him in the comments there from grc.com. With that, Appleton City, Anthony's boys down there in Appleton City got a win over OCL 48-14. Good for the Bulldogs. Pattonsburg Rich Hill, one of the better games today. 56-44 win for Pattonsburg. Going down south and get a big win. Pattonsburg needed that going into the rest of the year. And then South Holt beat Stewartsville Osborne 72-20. So now before we go on to week 7, let's look at a quick look at the media poll for this week. A little bit of moving there at the bottom of the poll just because of some of those teams kind of playing each other and got a little bit of a mixture a little bit here. And actually, that is the wrong poll. I don't have the week 7 poll up. Sorry, that's my mistake. But I'll get it pulled up here on my side so you guys won't be able to see it. That's on me. But week 7, where is my media poll? I can't find it at this point. So I'm going to look for that while we're getting that all pulled up here. Let's go to the conference standings real quick. The 275 EA, they're at the top. No big surprise there. Followed by South Holt and Rockport with both one loss in conference. And then Platte Valley and Mound City both with 2 losses as well. Platte Valley, I believe they've played through everybody now at the top of the conference except for EA. And then Mound City, they still have to play Rockport and South Holt still has to play. Those 3 teams have to play each other. South Holt, Rockport, Mound City, that will kind of decide who probably finishes second in the conference from those 3 teams next couple of weeks. So that's going to be really intriguing going forward for those teams. Nottoway Valley and Southwest, they play in a couple of weeks as well to see who gets that 5th spot, or that 6th spot, I guess. And then Stewartsville Osborne will play DeKalb in week 9. Hopefully Stewartsville can get back on the field at that point. They're going to be missing this week versus EA. Not enough kids to play. Okay. And then down in the Central River League, Oric right now, they've pretty much clinched the I-70 division. They still have North Shelby, so technically they could tie with St. Paul Lutheran for that division. But Oric, head-to-head, so the way I see it, Oric's going to win that conference title either way kind of deal. St. Paul Lutheran going to finish second. It looks like Hughesville is probably going to finish third. They beat Concordia last week. They still got to play Santa Fe this week as well. So I think Hughesville is in good shape there as well. North Shelby, they have clinched the North Division already, and they can clinch the outright conference title in 2 weeks when they play Oric. And if they beat them head-to-head, they will have the outright conference title there again there for the Raiders going forward. Bramer having a good year. They have a chance to get back to 500 for the first time in their 8-man history. Up to 500, they get a win this week. The Grand River Conference, Worth County and Stanbury both undefeated, kind of trending through that Week 9 game where it's going to be for all the marbles. King City 2-2, North Andrew 1-2, Albany and Pattonsburg still looking for their first conference win. The WeMo last week, Drexel beat Archie, has all but secured the conference title. They still got to play Jasper in week 8, but Drexel should be fine there and should win the WeMo, with Archie finishing second, Jasper third. Rich Hill, Appleton, and Liberal, I think, all to play each other a little bit there as well, so there should be some movement there at the bottom of the WeMo to see where those teams kind of shape up a little bit going forward. And then the independents you see there with Lockwood and Bishop of Blonde, both with 1 loss, Knox County with 2, and then everyone else there in the independents area there for 8-man football. Okay, week 7 media poll. I have it on my side over here. Unfortunately, I just can't see this. Stanbury, number 1, receives 7 first-place votes this week. First time since they beat King City, they didn't receive all 8 first-place votes. They play number 5, North Shelby, this week. Number 2 ranked Worth County did receive 1 first-place vote. I think you guys know who voted for the number 1. I will not rat him out, but he knows who he is. They did receive 1 first-place vote, 69 overall points, so they're right there pretty solidly in the second spot right now in the poll. Drexel at 3, kind of regained that 3 spot, 62 points overall. EA was 4 with 61. They were tied last week, I believe, with 63 votes apiece. So looks like Worth County took a few of their votes going forward from last week and kind of built on that a little bit going forward. North Shelby is at 5 with 44 points. King City is at 6 with 43. So it's really close there between those two teams. And I think how North Shelby plays versus Stanbury will kind of tell us where North Shelby should be kind of ranked there. If they do upset Stanbury, they might jump to the top of the rankings. If not, if they keep it close still, them and King City will still be vying for that 5-6 spot, depending on how it is. And if Stanbury has their way with North Shelby, you might see King City jump back into the top 5. We'll kind of see going forward. Number 7 in the poll, St. Paul Lutheran jumped up from 9 to 7. Good for St. Paul at 25 points. Archie, 17 points, stayed there at 8. Lost some votes, but they stayed there at 8 in the poll. Oric went from 7 to 9, so them and Lutheran flip-flop spots with 15 points there for Oric. I think it was a big loss there for Oric, but I still had them over St. Paul Lutheran. They played head-to-head week 1. Oric won the game. So I kept Oric above St. Paul Lutheran in my poll, actually. Then Lockwood, into the rankings at number 10 in the spot, with 12 points there. Going forward, Bishop of Blonde actually fell out of the poll but gained a point. So they actually had 9 points last week, 10 this week, but fell out because Lockwood jumped over them for that 10 spot. And then South Holt got 3 points as well, 3 votes there to get into the top 10. So they're the only other team that received points there. And Cody Hayscamp, I will get to your question in a minute because I do have some thoughts on the title game being moved to Thursday night, possibly there for Misha. So I will get to that at the end, though. That's going to be a lot of stuff to talk about with that one going forward. And let's go to district standings. So this is what really matters. We have 3 weeks left. This is where it really comes in going forward. Thank you, Clayton, for tuning in here. You guys being ranked. Congratulations to you guys down south in Lockwood. And trying to get you guys ranked for a while. I've had you in my poll for a few weeks now. I'm glad to see some of the other voters are kind of following suit and get you guys ranked. But you see district number 1 there. It's Drexel, Lockwood, Archie there at the top. Drexel should pretty much secure that 1 seed. Lockwood and Archie do play in week 8, which could decide who gets the 2 seed. You can possibly host the other one in the playoffs. Jasper right now at the 4 seed, pretty locked in there. They lost to Archie and Lockwood head-to-head, so they're pretty much going to stay there. Liberal and Rich Hill should fight for that 5 seed. I think Appleton and Greenfield play in a couple weeks to fight for the 7 seed there. OCL will probably get the 9 seed. They've lost to Appleton and Greenfield both head-to-head. So District 1 pretty set where they're going to kind of be there. There's still some jockeying for position there with Lockwood and Archie, and then Liberal and Rich Hill and Appleton City. So still some things to work out there, but District 1 pretty set at this point. District number 3, we'll go 3 because they're going to play them in the semifinals. You have LeBlanc at 1 right now. Unless they lose to Northwest Hughesville in week 9, I think they're going to win out, so they might get a hold on that number 1 spot. Oric at 2, they still got a big game versus North Shelby in week 8. King City at 3, they should win out, so if Oric falls, or if the points work out a little bit, King City could catch Oric for that 2 spot and host them in the second round instead of traveling to Oric back-to-back years. Bramer right now at the 4. I think they're going to get that 4 spot. I think they're going to win this week possibly, and maybe a couple more wins down the stretch, and Bramer's in good position here. Southwest Livingston at 6. North Shelby and Stewartville Osborne both tied at 7. And then St. Joe Christian and DeKalb at 8, 9. Still some things to work out at the bottom of this district. District 3, you do not want to be the 6th seed because that means first round you play either King City or Oric on the road. If you're the 4 or 5 seed, you can play another team that's kind of your level first round. If you're the 7 seed, you can play the 10. If you're the 8, you can play the 9, stuff like that. So This district in itself, you do not want to be the 6th seed because you have a really tough first-round matchup. You might not get a playoff win, and you got to play someone who's a really good team at this point with those top 3 seeds. District number 2, right now North Shelby, they're pretty solid there at that 1 spot. Now, if they do lose, they got Stanbury and Orrick next 2 weeks. If they fall 0-2 in those games, they could fall down. You can see St. Paul Lutheran possibly jump up to that 1 spot if they win out here. They got Lockwood and Drexel, and Lutheran can make a lot of noise if they win those 2 games. We'll see what happens. So they have a chance, though. Lutheran has a chance to control its own destiny, maybe get some big wins here down the stretch, and possibly jump to that 1 spot, depending on what North Shelby does. Knox County right now at 3, but Northwest Hughesville at 4. They won the head-to-head, so right now the playoffs started today. Lutheran is actually Hughesville is actually the 3 seed. If the bracket was made today, they would be the 3 seed playing the 6 seed, Northern Hardin Central. And actually, I believe Northern Hardin Central actually also beat Santa Fe. So you have the same first round matchup. You have Hughesville hosting Santa Fe as the 3-6, and then Knox County hosting Northern Hardin Central as the 4-5 in that one. In Northern Hardin Central right now, and I know Concordia beat Santa Fe, but you can only drop 1 spot due to head-to-head. So even if they fall to 6 with Northern Hardin Central with the head-to-head, they would stay ahead of Concordia because you only drop 1 spot. Concordia there at 7, Schuyler 8, Keatsville 9. Leland Kerr says, tell Anthony he's invited to St. Paul Lutheran as well. I'm not sure where Anthony's going this week, actually. Where is he going this week? Because if I get everything pulled up here correctly, I can't remember where Anthony's going. He's not on here to kind of show me. I know we have a podcast we're doing after this where he'll tell me where he's going. He might be going to North Shelby Stanbury or South Holt Mountain State. I'm not sure where he's going, but I don't think he hasn't told me he's going to Lutheran at least. So we'll see what happens. I know he went down to Lockwood. He really likes Lockwood's field down there. He went down there in week 2, that Thursday night game versus Jasper. I wish I could have gone to that. In the district number 4 here, right now, East Ashton, Worth County, and Stanbury, they're all control their own destiny. If they win out, most likely the 1 seed. Worth County, EA, if they both win out, it's kind of tricky with their point system, who would get that 1 seed there. But just a lot of interesting. These 3 teams all kind of control their destiny at the top. 4, 5, 6, 7, they all play each other pretty much at this point. So it's kind of hard to see where those teams are at right now. Yeah, Cody, I think he is going to go to South Holt Mountain City. I think he can't really pass up that rivalry game there. Should be a lot of fun there with Mountain City and South Holt. But yeah, those 4 teams there, the 5, 6, 7 all play each other the next 3 weeks. So that could really disrupt things in that one. Also, North Andrew looks pretty good here. They got Worth County left, but I think they're going to win the other 2 games and finish at 5-4. We'll see how their points kind of make up because they had a really tough schedule this year as well. Albany, with that. And Jeremy Benson thinks he's going to Stanbury. Okay, and so John Dykstra, he's going to Stanbury, North Shelby. So he's going to the game that I almost went to. So North Shelby, Stanbury, top 5 matchup. That's where Anthony's going because he loves the North and hates the South. I'm kidding on that one. Anthony does love the South. Nottoway Valley, they're going to get the 10 spot. If they were in any other district, they'd be like a 5 seed. So really tough there for Nottoway Valley with their points. Right now they would be the 6 seed District 3 or the 7 seed District number 2. So kind of stuck there at 10, a really tough district there in District number 4. So that's what districts kind of look like at this point going forward. But now let's look at Week 7, the glorious Week 7. And you can see there, number 5, North Shelby at number 1, Stanbury. This is a very interesting matchup. North Shelby really hasn't been tested at this point this year. I know Hughesville kind of gave them a game for a little bit there. But they really haven't been pushed or challenged for 4 quarters yet. Stanbury's going to do that. Stanbury's a very good football team. They've been challenged. They've already played North Andrew. They've played King City. They've played some really big games. They've played even an Albany team who I think is better than a lot of the teams North Shelby's played so far. I'm rolling with Stanbury in this one just because I think they're a really good football team, just top to bottom. I think they're the deepest team in the state. I think North Shelby has some good athletes. I think Stoneburner's a really good quarterback. I like what Lunsford does. But this is a game that I think Lunsford kind of gets taken out of a little bit more with Stanbury's front. Colvin is a monster in the middle. And they don't have Lunsford, the other Lunsford kid they had last year at North Shelby, to kind of maybe neutralize that threat. So I think Stanbury is up front. It's going to be a little more physical. I think it's going to be a really fun football game. You might see North Shelby throw the ball a little more than they're used to with Landon Bender on the outside and guys like that. So we'll see if they can kind of explore Stanbury's secondary a little bit more than other teams have. But we'll see what happens there. And Stanbury, I think they're just too good at this point. The play-action game is working well, too, with swayback to swayback. So give me Stanbury in this one, but it should be a really fun football game over there in Stanbury. Worth County, Pattonsburg. Worth County should roll in that one. Drexel, Greenfield, same again with Drexel. Drexel and Worth County going to kind of flex their muscles a bit this week in those. Schuyler County at King City, kind of the same thing. King City should get a big win in that one. And the game I'm going to, number 10 Lockwood, number 7 St. Paul Lutheran. I think it's going to be a very fun football game. That's why I decided to go to this one. I think this one will be closer than North Shelby Stanbury. I think this is two pretty evenly matched teams who have played some decent teams this year. I know Lutheran lost to Oric and Lockwood lost to Pierce City, who's an 11-man team who came down. I think this game would be technically counted as an exhibition game for Misha. They're 5-1. I've seen they lost that game, so I count them as 5-1 at this point. But Lockwood's a good team. St. Paul Lutheran is a tough physical football team. And I went down and watched Lockwood play at Appleton City for the team camp earlier this year. Oh, Cardinals, thank you, Jeremy. Cardinals are up 1-0. Roll Cardinals. Sorry, Dodgers. Hope you guys lose. With that, so yeah, but Lockwood, they had some big tight ends. They had some really good athletes there as well. I was really impressed with what I saw them. I know it was early in their transition kind of deal, but I kind of looked at their athletes and said, hey, if they can figure out the schemes and what they need to do, I don't know if they're going to be as good as Drexel or King Cedar Stamp, but they could be a top 10 team this year, and they've kind of shown that as they've kind of progressed through the year. They had Jasper week 2, which is a good matchup, and they won in overtime. And the more they play 8-man, the more they're figuring it out a little bit there. So I like Lockwood a lot. St. Paul Lutheran's been a team I've been high on since the summer. That next day I went and saw them at Archie, and they played right there with Archie kind of head-to-head, and they were pretty even there with Archie. I thought Archie was a little better at that point there for it, but I'm really impressed with that so far. I do like St. Paul Lutheran in this game slightly. I would not be surprised if Lockwood wins it. I just think St. Paul Lutheran up front is so big and physical. Christian Anderson and Ethan Kirby, know those names. They're maybe two of the best lineman combos in the state kind of deal. They're very, very good teams so far in this one. So I like St. Paul Lutheran. I like Maggart, the running back, Mueller, Bobbins there at quarterback. They just have some athletes there as well. They can mix in with that physical style. They kind of remind me, they're not North Angel from last year, but that same style where, hey, we're just going to hit you in the mouth for 4 quarters and see what happens at the end. We might not always win by 60 like we should, but we are going to be in every game we play just because of the style of play. They play a really fun style with that because it's kind of old school with them. And Lockwood, kind of multitude there on offense, but they got some speed. I know Kerr's a really good athlete there for them at quarterback. I've kind of looked in their stats a little bit. Their coach did send me some stats this past week, which was really good to see with them. And kind of look at their roster a little bit there for Lockwood. Let me see here. Let me get their stats pulled up on their team page, which you guys can see. Missouri 8-Man on Facebook and Twitter. The top links, there's a team page. You guys can see those. I do have stats for almost everybody put up at this point. Even Appleton City put some stats up from last week. I'm still waiting for their first 5 games, but they have some stats up at least. I think all but like 5 teams have stats up at this point. So good to see that. Kind of get a wide range of stats from everybody going forward. Oh yeah, Landon Stump, Buster Spinks, Nash McGuire, guys like that. You've only heard from Lockwood. Kane Cooper at receiver, who I believe, if I remember him right, was a pretty tall, lanky receiver there for Lockwood. So I'm really intrigued to see what they kind of do this year. Kerr does have 22 total touchdowns this year for him, over 1,000 all-purpose yards. So Lockwood, very good football team. I can't wait to see what they do rolling into St. Paul Lutheran. Should be a lot of fun. Next one, Archie, Appleton City. Archie should win that one. Norbert Hardin Central at Oric. Coach Thacker coaching against his old team. I'm sure there'll be a lot of emotions in that one. You kind of saw that in the Jamboree when they kind of faced off there. And Norbert Hardin Central played really well in that to kind of prove their old coach that we're still kind of with you kind of deal. I think Oric does win this one, kind of bounces back after a rough game last week. I think Oric wins this one, but this game might be closer than some kind of think just because of that emotional factor going into that game kind of deal with that one. Northland Christian playing Care Paravel over in Kansas. I know nothing about Paravel in this one. Northland Christian has really struggled defensively. I hope they just kind of a get-right game for them, but I'm not sure with the Kansas squad. I haven't done enough research on them going forward. Bramer Concordia. I've said this a little bit earlier in the show. Bramer can get the 500. They're 2-3 right now. Concordia has got 1 win on the year. This is a chance for Bramer to go in here and maybe get a win and get to the 500 and have a 3-win season, which I believe they haven't done before in 8-man. Let me double-check their history here real quick. Their best season is 2-9. That was their second year in 8-man in 2017. They went 1-9, 2-9, 0-10, 0-10, 1-8, and they're 2-3 this year. So if they get to 3-3 in the second year under Zach Douglas, that's huge for that program going forward. I like their young quarterback and Haley. They're a fun kind of interesting football team. He's already thrown for almost 1,400 yards, 13 touchdowns. He leads the state in passing yards right now and leads the state in all-purpose yards. He has almost 600 yards rushing as well. So something to keep an eye on there. Bramer's going to try to get their athletes out in space and kind of let them go to work kind of deal. Concordia, they're kind of the same way. So it's kind of it should be a high-scoring game, I think, in this one between Concordia and Bramer. Give me Bramer, but I think it's going to be a fun football game, kind of an underrated fun football game across the state. Rich Hill, Jasper. If Rich Hill wants to jump up in the WeMo standings, they have to beat Jasper. I think Jasper's just the next level up. So give me Jasper in this one. They're kind of dealing with some injuries down there, but they have a stable of running backs who are pretty solid there at Jasper. So give me Jasper to get a win. Keatsville, KC East Christian. I know KC East hasn't been good in the past, but they have beaten Schuyler and Norwood Hard Central this year, and they played Bishop LeBlanc tough. I think they're a little better than Keatsville so far this year. Give me KC East. That game's been played in like Blue Springs or something like that. I know I posted some information there from the Keatsville stuff. Thank you, Coach Douglas, for watching, and good luck to your boys there on Friday night for the Bobcats. Osceola Liberal. I think Liberal gets a win here. Peyton Morrow and company just a little better than Osceola at this point, so give me Liberal. South Holt, Mound City. This rivalry is still alive there. I know they had a junior high game this past week, and apparently there's already some stuff brewing in that game, so I can't wait to see how that kind of shapes out there on Friday night between South Holt and Mound City. There's no love lost between the two communities, the coaches, the players. There's a lot of tension there, though. I kind of feast off some tension off that, so it should be a really fun, old-school rivalry game there between South Holt and Mound City. Both teams aren't as good as they have been in the past, but I think it's still kind of there, and both teams really want to get a win there. Coach Peterson wants to beat his former team. Mound City wants to keep beating up on South Holt a little bit. But it's been a really fun back-and-forth game when it was South Holt, Nottoway Holt versus Mound City. We'll see if South Holt can win it when it's just South Holt going forward here. And I think South Holt does win this game. I think Mound City's a little banged up. I'm not sure about Rother right now, if he's going to be able to play Friday or not. He's probably not playing quarterback either way. So we'll see with Mound City going forward with that one. I think South Holt a little healthier. I think Bernie Scroggins is probably the best player on the field there, so I'm going to roll with South Holt in that one. Bishop LeBlanc, who fell out of the top 10 at Nottoway Valley. I think Nottoway Valley's okay. They have trouble putting four quarters together versus good teams or solid teams kind of going forward, so we'll see if they can do that here. You saw a couple weeks ago they went up on Rockport and fell way behind. So we'll see if they've started to figure things out. I know the Cook kid played some quarterback last week instead of O'Hannon. That kind of sparked the offense a little bit. Clay Hansen at running back played really well last week as well. I think he had 3 touchdowns, like $140 kind of down there on the ground. A junior running back for him that's kind of come on the scene they really didn't expect this year. So good for Nottoway Valley. I think LeBlanc with Reggie Love and company, just too much there for Nottoway Valley. Give me Bishop LeBlanc. Albany, North Andrew. Should be a fun game. I think a lot of points are going to be scored in this one, I think. Kipper Klein for Albany is a really good player. Truman Reynolds as well. Kirby Stevens. They got some players there at Albany. They haven't been able to put it together versus good teams. And I think North Andrew with Hayden Ecker's going to be the best player on the field. Linville's a really good player as well. Give me North Andrew in this one at home to get a big win and get back above 500. Santa Fe, Northwest Hughesville, both teams 3-3. Going in different directions, though. Santa Fe started 3-0, lost their last 3. 3 games they probably should have won. While Northwest Hughesville, really tough early schedule, and they get a win here and get it back above 500 on the season. Give me Northwest Hughesville fairly comfortably in this one. Maybe Santa Fe shouldn't have won last week, but they should still be 5-1 or 4-2 at this point, and they're 3-3. Kind of a disappointing last couple weeks after a hot start for the Chiefs. DeKalb, Platte Valley in the past has been 2 teams who are bottom of 275. Platte Valley has jumped up into that middle to the top of 275, so give me Platte Valley over DeKalb. Southwest Livingston, Rockport. Rockport should win this one going forward. They should win this going away. We'll see if they do. And then St. Joe Christian at St. Mary's Academy over there in Kansas. Give me St. Mary's at this point. I don't know anything about St. Mary's, but St. Joe Christian has not looked good so far this year. Maybe St. Joe Christian gets their first win. We'll see what happens. I'm not sure with the Kansas school how it's going to work out. So that's going to run down the last couple of weeks, some standing stuff and all that good stuff for you. And before we head to the question and answer, I'm going to give everybody kind of a time to, if they want to ask any questions, to do so. So if you have any questions, put them up right now. Okay, so I'll give you a little bit of time. You guys can still put some questions in there. Let me go back up to Cody Hayes' camp to kind of see. So his question was thoughts on Thursday night title game. So I did get a notification this morning that Misha had sent something out. I'm going to bring it up on my phone real quick. Let me see. Okay, so University of Missouri approached us regarding our schedule. We were asking this is from Misha. They were asking us to play 3 games on Friday and 2 games on Saturday to allow them to host an event Saturday evening. They were unaware the 8-man game had moved to the first weekend to the second, requiring a 3 games per day setup. Mizzou asked us to modify our schedule to allow this event. The only feasible option is to move one of the 6 games to Thursday evening. Due to modifications needed for the 8-man field, the 8-man championship game would be played on Thursday. This would also trigger they would have to play their semifinals on Friday, November 26th, the day after Thanksgiving. So that's where we're at with it right now. My thing is, am I surprised? No. It's simple communication. This was supposed to happen last year. Missouri 8-man football was supposed to be moved back a weekend, the extra teams with that. And it's just really kind of frustrating that this happens at this point because it was going to happen last year. I know COVID kind of put a wrench in things, and they had to move staying away from Mizzou at that point and having on high school fields. And Chillicothe did a great job hosting it last year. But this year, it was going to be the same thing. 8-man moved to the following weekend. They had even more teams come in, so this is going to be a thing. You got to tell people before this so that you can have everything worked out for this and not week 7 of the season. Oh, yeah, by the way, we got to move the 8-man game to Thursday now because we didn't tell Mizzou, who our vendor at time, who is going to be playing, how many games we needed that weekend. That's simple communication stuff that you should learn a long time ago. That I'm really kind of frustrated because it looks like you don't care about 8-man football. It's what it comes across. You don't care about 8-man or the small schools. That's what it comes, and maybe they don't. I don't know, but that's how it comes across to the people who cover and people who participate in the 8-man game and Class 1 and them included. Kind of just get put. Oh yeah, we'll deal with them later. Oh, this happened. Oh, I guess we can just move them to Thursday. So just really kind of frustrating with that for me personally. It kind of stinks also. I know some people will like it because you have a Friday game for playoffs and then the Saturday game as well. So you can see more playoff games. Maybe that's good for 8-man. I don't know. But for years, 8-man coaches fought to have the 8-man game at the same venue, the same day as the 11-man championship game, at least same weekend kind of deal where they'd be the Friday before everything else, but at least they'd be on the same day going into it. And now they get pushed to a different day. It just kind of stinks. It's not a good look from Misha at this point from my viewpoint. With that. So that's where I have kind of with it. I don't think there's anything we can do about it at this point, but Michigan's going to do what they're going to do at this point with it. So it stinks. Thursday night, not great because now it's going to be probably a smaller crowd than what it even usually would be for that. I know sometimes Friday morning's not a great crowd anyways, but I think Thursday night could be even worse because people I got to drive all the way to Columbia. I probably got work the next day. I know I do at that point. So it's kind of a frustrating point for that. But for any team going there, you just relish the opportunity to play on a championship field kind of deal there. So we'll see what kind of goes going forward. 2 Stanbury, North Shelby questions. First one, does North Shelby go to number 1 with the win at Stanbury? It'd be them or Worth County for me at this point. But I think if North Shelby goes to number 1, if they beat Stanbury on the road, they're going to get heavy consideration for number 1 in my poll alone. Probably more people as well. They'll get some more respect going forward. We'll see if they can get that win. So yeah, if North Shelby goes to Stanbury, I'd be very tempted to put them number 1 on my poll. With that, Clayton Robertson, do you think Stanbury will be able to run the gauntlet and finish the regular season? I think they do. I think they have a good chance of it. If any teams would have a chance to beat North Shelby and then at EA and at Worth County, it'd be Stanbury. That's a really tough schedule though. I mean, to finish that undefeated, go 9-0, they'd be the number 1 seed District 1. But at that point, you're probably playing a solid team in the second round of the playoffs, and then either EA or Worth County again. So it's a really tough stretch here. If Stanbury wins state this year, if they go undefeated and win state, they would have definitely earned it at that point. Because at that point, you're saying, okay, we beat King City in the regular season, we beat North Andrew, we beat North Shelby, EA, Worth County, went to the playoffs, probably beat North Andrew again, or a Platte Valley or someone like that. Beat either EA or Worth County again, beat North Shelby or St. Paul Lutheran again. At that point, and then you play either Drexel or King City or something like that, win that game as well. That's a gauntlet at that point. There would be no doubts of who the best team was if they went through all that undefeated. It's a tough stretch. If anybody can do it, it'd be Stanbury this year, in my opinion. Next, John Dykstra, early 8-man player of the year pick, Coffey, Muff, Reinhardt, Colvin, Merriweather. I think it goes to a seal guy. I think if you go best lineman, Colvin's definitely a discussion there for that. A couple other guys who I'm not going to be able to think of off the top of my head with this one. But player of the year, I like Merriweather. Merriweather have a better chance at defensive player of the year because he's a very good linebacker. Him and like Crooker from Northwest Hughesville, I think would be a very high opinion on them. Also Christian Anderson from St. Paul Lutheran, just kind of looking at some of the stats. I know stats don't say everything, but just kind of the guys that I kind of look at and like, okay, they're having a real impact. I think Coffey would have a chance at defense player of the year as well. I think he's offense, defense, maybe the best player overall. Trying to look at some other guys across the state. Carter Luke, I think, could have a discussion on this as well. Hayden Ecker, I think, deserves a discussion. Schieber from Stanbury. The 8-man player of the year, I think right now it's either Coffee. I think Coffee, Mouth, Reinhardt, your first three were probably right, and Ecker are probably the top 4 that I'd put up there for player of the year at this point. Across the state, those are probably the best 4 players I've seen. I think Swayback's been a really good player. Would I put him up for offensive player player of the year? Probably not. I just think Stanbury 1 through 8 does everything so well. It's hard for one guy to kind of stand out because they kind of take weeks of, hey, we're going to have a big game this week, but the next week they're going to take us away a little bit. Now it's Schieber's turn. Now it's Gavin Cameron's turn, or whoever it may be for Stanbury. I think Stanbury's kind of a victim of their own scheme, which is not a bad problem to have. It's really makes it, I think, better to beat good teams because they're hard to game plan for. But Swayback's been very good this year. Both Swayback's been very good this year for that. I think Aiden Gladstone deserves a little bit of recognition for this. I know I already said Reinhardt, but Gladstone and Reinhardt work really well in tandem. Maybe the most dynamic duo in the state going forward. I think Stoneburner probably is in that discussion too for North Shelby for as dominant as he's been this year. And a guy who won't get it, but has been really good this year. 2 guys who won't get it, but deserve some praise in this one. Branson Miller from Knox County and Blake Buchanan from Oric. I think are 2 really good players that just won't get to that next level, but definitely deserve that discussion as well. But right now, player of the year, I would probably go Jacob Coffey. Leads the state in touchdowns. He's second in total yards. And he's been very good defensively as well. Maybe the best defense player, maybe the best linebacker in the state. So I'll go Jacob Coffey at this point for my player of the year. But there's not a whole lot of bad options. I know Anthony and Coach Gavin talked about this in Anthony's podcast last couple of weeks. There's 6 or 7 running backs. Like, if depending on which team they're on, they could be the best player in the state that year. So, okay, I know get player of the year, all 3 phases, not just offense, but it goes to an offensive player of the year. It's the way it usually goes with it. And because offense sells tickets. I know defense wins championships, but offense sells tickets and gets all the glory. So, but I would go Jacob Coffey because he is the best at 2 of the 3. He didn't play much special teams because he needs a little bit of a break. A lot of these guys don't play special teams as well. But also, return of the year might be either Dante Birch from Northland Christian or Corey Gunther from Drexel, who already has 6 touchdowns in the return game this year, and no one's kicking at Birch this year for Northland Christian because they're scared of him going forward. James Nair, I hope we got that right. Thoughts on Jasper? Jasper's a very good football team. I think they're very talented. 2 tough losses to Lockwood and Archie, where I think are both top 10 caliber teams. So I think Jasper is right at that edge of the top 15 kind of deal. I haven't been able to see Jasper in person, unfortunately, this year, but I saw him last year, and they lost a few of those guys, but walking off the bus, Jasper looked very talented and like that. I think the new coach has been really good for them as well to kind of get them steered back in the right way. So good job there for Jasper. They're a really good football team. I'm really kind of excited to see what they do week 8 when they play Drexel, if they can give them a little more of a game than they've seen all year kind of deal. Clayton Robertson, most underrated quarterback. Oh, that's a good question. Let me see here. I mean, Eli Kerr might be it from Lockwood just because people don't know about Lockwood at this point. So he might be my pick there. I haven't seen him in person. I want to kind of see him in person before I kind of put him in that underrated kind of category. I think Landon Gardner from LeBlanc does a really good job. I think Brian McIntyre before last week having a really good season. I think he's a young guy, though, that moment was really big versus Drexel. So that's one thing I want to see with him going forward. But some guys to kind of look at who are maybe underrated. I think also Austin, I know Benson said Swayback earlier, but I think Austin Swayback's been a much better quarterback this year than he has been in the past. And maybe didn't get the credit for that because Stanbury's been that good of a team. I think he's been an underrated quarterback and kind of leader for that team this year, being really well. And a guy, Christian Bobson for St. Paul Lutheran, I think he's been really good this year. People don't talk about them because they're kind of looked at as a more running team. They've thrown the ball a lot more this year than they have in the last year. So a couple of quarterbacks there I want to throw out. Dylan Carden. Platte Valley has DeKalb and Stewartsville coming up. They win both those games. Do you think he has enough momentum and a chance to run with East Atchison? I think it's tough for Platte Valley in that situation. I think they do win the next 2 weeks fairly comfortably, especially, I don't know if Stewartsville will be able to play in Week 8, so we'll keep an eye on that. So I think one team has a bye in Week 8. I think it's Schuyler County, possibly looking for a game in Week 8 as well. I can check on that in just a minute to see who's actually open that week. I know there's Schuyler County is open Week 8, so say if Stewartsville can't play Platte Valley, maybe you can get a game there with them and Schuyler possibly scheduling. But EA, I just think EA is that much better than everybody else in 275 right there. You saw what Platte Valley, sticking close with Mound City, beating Mountain City, barely losing to South Holt. You saw what EA did to those two teams. They ran them off the field kind of deal there. So I just think there's a gap between EA and the rest of the conference. I think Platte Valley is the last 275 matchup EA has the rest of the year that could be tough there. But I think EA is much better. Dark Horse team and 8-man. I don't know if they're dark horses anymore because I've been kind of hyping them up. They finally got ranked, but Lockwood and Lutheran kind of don't get a whole lot of eyes from around the state just because they're either new to 8-man, Lutheran their second year, Lockwood their first year, and people just don't get to see them a whole lot. So I'm excited to see them this week and kind of get them some coverage with that. I think I might be sleeping on LeBlanc a little bit, but I'm not sure with them so far. They lost to who's a better analyst, Anthony or me? That's definitely me. Anthony is watching this. He says my shirt sucks, and that's why I'm the better analyst. Cardinals are up 1-0 second inning. So we'll see what happens going forward with that. But hope you guys are enjoying this. Is there any other questions with 8-man football going forward here? Also, make sure this will be on my podcast, Straight Up Sports, and just an audio version if you want to listen to it. Make sure you guys check out Anthony Crane's podcast. I believe he has Coach Peterson on this week, so that should be a lot of fun. You guys know Coach Peterson. Whenever he gets on the podcast, there's going to be some fireworks. There's going to be some not safe for work language kind of deal there. So make sure you guys are ready for that. But that should always be kind of fun there with Coach Peterson on his podcast with him and Coach Cavan. Make sure you guys follow Clifton Notes. They're on Twitter. He'll put his podcast up. Ooh, Freshman of the Year. I could Jordan Haley for Bramer. I mean, he's a freshman leading the state in passing yards right now. And Bramer might get close to 500 for the first time in their 8-man history kind of deal. So I think Haley has a good chance right now. Haley and Linville from North End. I always forget about Linville because he plays much better than a freshman kind of does. So I kind of usually forget about him. But those kind of couple guys that I would think right now be the freshman of the year would kind of be one of those two off the top of my head. I can't remember who else would be a freshman this year who I've kind of seen that's really kind of shown off the screen to me. A lot of juniors and seniors who have been really good this year that I've really noticed so far. So that's what we have going forward this year. I'm going to ignore Anthony in the comments just because I usually do. And I'm going to get off here because with that... Oh, Anthony said JP had to cancel, unfortunately. So there's no fireworks. There's no reason to listen to the Anthony Crane podcast this week. I'm kidding. Still listening to them. Don't think he's going to have any guests on there, but him and Coach Gavin usually have a pretty good discussion. There'll be some talk about Tom Brady, I'm sure. There'll be some talk about Arkansas. Anthony's new podcast episode. I'll let Anthony answer in the comments before I get off here. But usually drops on Thursday. Usually Thursday, Friday, somewhere in there, wherever he gets on it kind of deal. He gets Coach Barron's this week. So Coach Barron's not having a game this week. Be able to get on Anthony's podcast. Maybe Coach Barron's can break the Anthony Crane curse. He had Coach Jones from Rockport on a few weeks ago. They were 0-2 since he joined. He had Coach Thacker on last week, and they lost by 50 to Worth County. So maybe Coach Barron's can break the curse of Anthony Crane. Need a little ref action there. I hope Anthony asks Barron's about some of his reffing and stuff like that, along with coaching for East Atchison. So that should be a very fun podcast as well with Coach Barron's for Anthony. And wait for Anthony to kind of say when that podcast is going to drop. I'm guessing Thursday, Friday. Today's Wednesday, so I'm guessing the next couple of days you'll be able to hear that. I usually listen to that on my drive to wherever I'm going on Friday, just because I want to get in the mood for 8-man football a little bit there. So I will be going to Lockwood, St. Paul Lutheran. Let me get that on there. So you see those two helmets there, Lockwood and St. Paul Lutheran. Should be a lot of fun. My first trip to St. Paul Lutheran. I've seen them play in person before in Concordia, but it was at Concordia High School and not St. Paul. So that's what I have for you guys this week. If there's no more questions. So Anthony says it'll be up either late tonight or early tomorrow. You guys will be able to hear that. So late Wednesday, early Thursday morning, the Anthony Crane podcast will drop. Make sure you guys tune in for that. Make sure you guys follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube as well. So you guys saw this week, Facebook went down for like a day, and I'm like, okay, that's not great going forward for some of the stuff that we do here at 8-Man Football. But if there's any problems with that, I will put the broadcast, I will archive it, and it will go on the YouTube page as well. So you guys can see those. You can see this as well. So all the games, I believe, except for maybe one, I didn't have a storage on my iPad before I started broadcasting that didn't get on there. But all the rest of the games, and I'm breaking them down to halves. So there'll be a first half and a second half broadcast on Facebook and YouTube. You can see the YouTube ones archived later, usually up on Saturday. Best 8-man team you've ever seen. So I'll go with mine. So since probably I was like 7th, 8th grade, so I didn't get to see some of the early Mountain City teams who were just insanely good. But since I started playing and covering Some of those North Andrew Stanbury teams I was playing were really good. But I think the Worth County team in 17 still might be the best team I've seen so far. But this year's Stanbury team, if they go through the gauntlet like they might this year, and say if they keep just dominating teams week in, week out, they might be able to put their claim at the top there. But that Worth County team in 2017 really didn't have a close game all year. Was able to roll through teams. So I could probably go Worth County 2017. Best offense, though, that I saw of a really good team, a state champion team, would probably Southwest last year. They were so fun offensively last year. I like the style they had there where they ran the ball a little bit, but they love to air it out, and that gets to my soul a little bit for them going forward. So that's what I have for you guys this week. Make sure you keep following. We'll have the Twitter polls are up there for the thread, so if you want to see the picks for this week, who's kind of favored for each one of the games, you guys can see that as well. So far, I believe we actually had a bunch of teams. I didn't post this yet for the pick'ems, but I think we had 5 people go undefeated this week. I was not one of them. I went 17-2, but I believe we had 5 people go 19-0 in the pick'em. Coach Hasekamp went 19-0. Jordan Miller went 19-0. Tim Miller went 19-0. Tin Holder went 19-0, and I think Coach Watson went 19-0 as well. So 5 undefeated picks this week. And I think no one did worse than 17-2. I think I did 17-2. One other person, and Coach Gavin and Dan Lowe went 17-2. Everyone else went 18-1. So you weren't close, Benson. I'd be going 18-1. Probably the only game you missed was the North Andrew game. So cause you got Northern Hardin Central and Pattonsburg under my thing. Maybe I'll go double check that, but maybe you don't want me to double check it. So. And my last, John, no, you went 18-1 this week. You actually picked all the games right besides Osceola, Appleton City. You picked against Anthony's boys in Appleton, so that was your one chance to be undefeated this year. You missed it, so I'll double check that, Jeremy. But I'm pretty sure you did a pretty good week, though. Kind of a weird week. Everyone did really well. But right now in the pick'ems, myself and Tim Miller at first with 97 correct picks. Crane, Magruder, both are in third with 96, just a game back. And then it goes Coach Gavin, Benson in 5th with 94. Dykstra and Hasekamp and Twitter are all tied for 7th at 93. So that's kind of your top 10 kind of deal with that one. So I'll post those later on, either tonight or tomorrow, and we'll have the pick'ems up for this week as well. I think it gets easier as the season goes on. You kind of see the level of teams you can kind of sort them a little better going forward. So thank you guys. I'm going to get off here. Clifton, I will do what I want, all right? Maybe I'll go eat supper first. I'm kidding. So Clifton Grooms will have me and Anthony on his podcast for that one. This was just a preview for that. So you guys want to see more of me talking with Clifton, tune in for that. But you guys have a good one. I'm going to jump off here, and you guys have a good rest of week 7. And I'll see you guys next Wednesday, 7 o'clock. We'll do the same thing all over again.